Alright, I only watched the first round of Mueller's testimony in front of Congress, and I thought the Democrats squeaked out of it fairly well. And it was a lot closer, if you use a football game analogy, than it really was. I didn't get a chance to watch his second round till later on, and holy shit. Instead of getting in the grooves and finding his legs, Mueller only went downhill from the first round. And his ineptitude only increased. After watching the second part of it, I'm convinced he didn't write that report. I'd be surprised if he even read the whole damn thing. There were several people on the second panel that just carved that man to shreds. And he had no decent response to anything that they said. Quite frankly, it was an embarrassment. Who in their right mind, knowing at least wise Mueller's mental state, would put him in that position? They had a chance to get out of it. Hell, they postponed it and still went ahead with it anyway. Talk about poor judgment or desperation. For the most part, this whole investigation has been a clown show. It doesn't even qualify as a witch hunt. It's like watching some episode of the Keystone Cops chasing some fictitious felon and bumping into each other and falling over their own feet the whole time. So what happens next? Obviously, these foolish people have dragged themselves into the limelight, and it's become fairly apparent to anybody who's paying attention that something ain't right here. And it's time to investigate the investigators and find out exactly what the hell goes on here. What some people don't know is that there have been ongoing investigations, and they're on the verge of closing, at least wise the Inspector General's investigation into the FISA abuse and how all this got started. There is no honor among thieves, and don't shit yourself. As we all know, for the most part, if you're in Washington long enough, you get turned, and you have the mentality of a thief. So when all of this starts coming out the other way, how all this started and what's behind it or what have you, they're going to start doing this. I didn't do it. This person did it. I didn't know. They knew. And so forth and so on. And they're quite literally going to offer themselves up on a platter politically. And if things go as they should go, legally. How far this goes, I couldn't tell you. I could only speculate. And based on my speculations, it goes all the way to the top. Right through the White House, into corporate America, into the tech world and everything else. That's why we have to deal with some of the things that we're dealing with these days, especially in social media realms. And so far, if it follows the trends that have been set along the way, they're going to double down again. and they're going to clamp down on whatever they can to try to maintain their control and keep all this from coming out, which at this point is basically impossible, because a lot of the American public, even some of the non-believers, and you can tell by the reaction from the mainstream media today, they did a double take. They're like, what the hell was this? What are these people even doing? Lady Justice doesn't get to operate like they do. There are things within the law that make things have to go a certain way, and it takes time, and it's been way slow in coming. But I got a feeling all that's by design. But eventually, this dam is going to burst. And there's going to be more information coming out than we can probably keep up with. And more than a lot of people are going to want to know. But if you love your country, you'll pay attention. Because in more ways than one, this should never be allowed to happen again. And legally, the deeper we can get to the root of the problem, the more of the infection we can yank out. And that should be the overall goal. Because just like a rusty car, you can't never eliminate all the rust. And eventually, one day, it'll be back. Who's who, what's what, will all shake out in the end. That's why this has all been maneuvered, just so. And when all the finger pointing and all of the blame game is done, for the most part, we're going to know exactly who's involved and what goes on. That's this if Lady Justice is allowed to do her job. I'd take a moment to give a little side note on what YouTube itself has been doing to a lot of its users. A lot of people like to share links between each other and in comment sections or whatever. I do it a lot with my channel. It's usually music when I put up a pinned comment. But recently, I've come to the realization that if I put a link in with a comment on somebody else's page or whatever, nobody sees it. It's completely shadow banned. So if you want to be able to get around that, you're going to have to type whoever story you're looking to spread or what have you into your comment without using it as a link. And if we were smart, everyone who has any amount of subscribers, even a small amount, should be promoting channels that they like or that they think are keeping up with all of this information. It's the only way. Because just like someone else has said along the way through all of this, who everybody thinks is on the other side, I'm not sure myself, but every time I run the numbers on this guy, it comes up Patriot. If you really want to beat this, you have to grow in the face of it. And that means rallying together and promoting each other for a common cause. And that's just the way it has to be. Because in the end, we're never going to get this country back on track if we're not willing to pull together. Because that's what humanity's supposed to be all about. It's the negative forces' job in the world to promote division. That way we all don't come together and realize the power that we have as a species. Not one color against another, not one ideology against another, and right down the line. So there's something to think about as you go about your daily business and realize there's way more going on here than meets the eye. And for the most part, it ain't nothing like we've been told.